This is the Griffin Realty Group Ask-A-Griffin podcast, episode number 40. Touring. Is the internet helping the modern day home buyer? Are you a home seller or a home buyer who has questions about selling or buying residential property, but you can't find an easy way to get your answers? Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Griffin Realty Group and the host of the Ask-A-Griffin podcast. And to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the very near future, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. All right, let's get started. Touring. What do I mean? Touring properties as a buyer. That's the new subset that we get into here in our buyer series. And the question on the table to start that section is the internet actually helping the modern day home buyer? So the first point here is, you see, the internet makes it easier for the use of enhanced pictures that actually might be distorting the true condition. So most of us are familiar with Adobe's Photoshop and that concept, and it's become almost just to Photoshop. It's verbiage to say the action of enhancing pictures and making them look better so that the property looks better. Now, of course, we all do that. We do that with headshots. We do that with all sorts of pictures and effects where it's this enhanced sense of reality. We seem to be so afraid of what reality is. But in marketing, I get it. It's important for the listing agent to put the property in its best light. Quite frankly, if they don't know how to do that in a digital marketing world, most likely they're not going to get hired to do the job. And unfortunately, for a lot of sellers, they don't even ask that question and they don't even look at it, so they don't even know what it looks like. Now, what I would say is just a little pitch to my fellow listing agents: do the best job with your photographer, your drone photographer, your videographer, your whole team, to give a true and honest depiction of what's happening here. Of course, you can recondition the property prior to memorializing the pictures. You can stage the property. You should and could make it in the best light it can be for that day where the sun's out and everything. You're getting the property at its best, But you don't want to start using trick photography, and as a buyer, you should understand that. Don't fall in love with just the picture. Take your time. When you see something that says, or makes you feel good, wow, that room looks great, you can then go to the digital floor plans or try to figure out online, if there is a floor plan, how big is that room really? And what does that mean for real space to you? So you see, these pictures can really distort the reality of what's most important to you. And we talked about that already in this buyer series. You have to really begin to get in touch with what's most important to you. And it's not a pretty picture. That might be part of what you'll do to it, but you're really not going to know until you physically tour a property. So let's just be aware that when we start on the internet looking at these pictures, they could be enhanced and they might distort the true condition. The next point here is the internet allows access to all information, and now the burden of sorting falls on the buyer. Let me just give you a quick historical background and perspective on what this business was like for years. There were all of these listings, and they went to a central location known as the multiple listing service for that local geography. And when all of the information went there, it was filed and cataloged. And I've been around long enough as a young investor, fresh out of school, looking in books. So there would be a little tiny picture, the thing that you would see today on a website. If you went to thegriffin.co and you looked at properties, you would see a little key picture, a featured image, and a quick description of what that property was. Well, that's what realtors would see and their buyers would see on a bi-monthly basis, that you would go in and there'd be a new book printed bi-monthly or monthly, depending on the multiple listing service, and you would sit down and start flipping through the book. And it was a lot of work. And that's why the value of the realtor was so high, because not only would that realtor help you flip through the book and make some distinctions, but their expertise would help you cut through that. Well, that didn't change. And that hasn't changed. The expertise of somebody who does this on a regular basis, knows the geography, knows the product, is in touch with the local market trends. I say this all the time in our market update. If you want to go to the blog, look at one of our market updates. We try to share that information all the time. So there's so much to sifting and sorting through what all this means to the buyer. And now there's a perception that, oh, I have all of that. I have access to all that. Really? So you're that not busy where you have the time as a buyer to go to the internet, sift and sort through all the possible sites that are actually just populating the same information. You understand that, right? The mothership where all the information lives is this multiple listing service. And all that happened with the internet is something called syndication, where anybody, a real estate company, a tech company, they can come down, buy access to that, aggregate it, and spit it out there to the World Wide Web, also known as the internet, right? So when you look at all that, you say to yourself, all right, well, now the same information where I used to just pick a realtor, go sit with them, is now everywhere. And I have this misperception that it's different on different sites. Now, don't get me wrong. Some sites present it better than others. Some might be more timely, more accurate, but there are so many variables there. I'm not going to make a judgment on that. I'm just going to say the internet has given you not only access to all the information you never had as a consumer pre about 1995, 96, but now the same stuff is on all different websites. I don't know how you couldn't be drastically confused when you have to sift and sort through all of that. So good news, you have access. Bad news is you have access to too much information, right? So let me just go a little bit further too. If I combine these concepts, that potentially misleading pictures and too much digital information confuses buyers, now they might just get so exasperated, they might do nothing. Somebody that really wants to make a move and starts to sift and sort through all of this themselves might do nothing. Now, I know there are some of you that will listen to this and say, oh no, I want that access. I want to go through my own process. I want to control. Wonderful. But ultimately, I'd still say this. You might do all the research on a surgery that you need to have, but ultimately, you're not going to perform the surgery yourself. So I've seen a lot of people who are the smartest person in the room after doing their research, and they still go out and make pretty egregious mistakes when it comes to buying a property. They just didn't have all the information they could have. So this is why the internet hasn't made realtors extinct. And I don't see that happening anytime soon across a lot of businesses simply because information is out there. You need experts to sift and sort and make sense of it, compile it, what I call curate it, refine it, so that they give it to you in a digestible bite that allows you to make the empowered buying decision that you make. So that's my pitch for this. So let me go back and review this here, right? As we get into this concept of now touring properties, obviously, times have changed since the early mid-90s, if you can believe it's already that old. Now, well into the 2000s, people are virtually touring things, whether there's still pictures, even 3D walkthroughs of homes, YouTube videos. Our tendency is to tour first online. Just simply beware of the challenges of touring properties online and making your distinctions. One is the enhancement digitally of a property. It may or may not look that beautifully in real life. You want to get out there, definitely. We'll get into that in the touring, but you want to get out there and see properties. But the other thing is there's just so much information. The consumer is still so confused that you really need to pay attention to it, right? So that was the second point here, is that the internet allows access to all information, and the burden of sorting now falls on the buyer. So it hasn't made it easier in that category either. But lastly, combining misleading pictures and too much information can confuse the buyer, who might end up actually doing nothing because they're paralyzed. Please don't do that if you're a buyer. Reach out for help, and an agent still, a good agent still, just like in them our olden days, when this was printed in a book, they can help you sift and sort through all this and make sense. All right, I'll summarize it this way. While the internet is a wonderful tool in that it allows access to what was once only proprietary information for realtors, the new challenge that homeowners or home buyers face is making sense of the distorted reality of enhanced pictures and then sorting through a mass of unorganized information. So just beware of all that. That's all. Remember, you can take immediate action to get started in the right direction. If you need to sell or buy property right now or in the near future, by getting our free step-by-step guides at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. Also, don't forget you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen so that you don't miss out on any insights each time we upload an episode. We also post all of our episodes on our social media channels. So remember to turn on your notifications for Griffin Realty Group and you won't miss the reminders. We'd also appreciate if you'd share our content with other people just like you so that they can get the help that they need. But remember this, we appreciate you listening, but we have to remind you that nobody's coming for you. So go get to work on a real plan to help you properly buy or sell property. And we will be here in the future with some more tips to prevent you from making a mistake in what is one of the largest financial and emotional transactions most people will ever make in a lifetime. See you in the next episode.